morning, boys and girls. It's Mrs. Walker. In today's lesson, we're going to continue talking about division, and we're going to relate division and multiplication together. We're going to talk about how we can use arrays to do that. So our learning goal for today says, I can interpret the unknown in division using the array model. So that just means that we're going to be missing a piece of information, and we're going to try and figure it out with a division problem. That's all. All right, so let's jump in and get started. So the first thing that I have for us is we are going to solve a math problem. It said 20 children play a game. There are 5 children on each team. How many teams play the game? Write a division sentence to represent the problem. Okay, so if I want to start to think about this, the first thing I'm going to do is I might just do like a little quick draw with it. So as I'm doing that, I know that there are 20 children all together, and I know that there are 5 children on each team. So I know how many are in each group, but I don't know how many teams or groups there are. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a 5. So let's say I might do this. So 5. So that's one group right there. So then I'm going to count by 5s as I draw those until I get to 20, because there's 5 in each group, and I'm going to count until I get 20. So 5, 10, 15, ooh, that's a crazy 5, 20. So I can label those down on the bottom so I don't forget. I stopped counting at 20 because that was the total number of children that played in the game, 20 children. So I could go underneath here so I don't forget what I'm doing. So 5, 10, 15, and 20. Okay, so if I wanted to write a division sentence that matches this picture, I could start with 20, because we know that when we start with division, we always start with the biggest number, divided, and then I know that there was 5 in each group, and then I figured out once I counted that there were 4 groups or 4 teams in this problem. So 4 teams play the game would be the correct answer for this problem. Now let's look into seeing how we can turn this problem and relate it to an array. So if you look up in the top corner, I have the same problem again that we just did, but then I drew an array that goes along with it. Another thing I want you guys to notice is in this problem down here, zoom it in, 20 divided by 5 equals 4. That's the same thing that we talked about, but I want you to notice that this 4 right here is called the quotient. So when you're solving a division problem, the answer is going to be the quotient. Okay? Remember when we talked about when you're solving a multiplication problem, the answer would be the product when you multiply 2 numbers. So when you're dividing, the answer is going to be the quotient. Okay? So just kind of keep that tucked in the back of your mind. So let's dive in and look at this array. Okay, so let's analyze what we see. So as I'm looking at this array, I see that all together here, let's see if it'll zoom it in for us. Yes, okay. All together in there, we have 20 red dots. So we can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We'll just double check. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Okay, so we have our 20. Remember, that was our total number of kids that played on each, or played the game. Okay. Then I want to look at how many people or how many children on each team. When I looked at that problem, that was 5. Okay, that told us up here. But so I also noticed that that was the number in each group, was the 5 right there. Okay. What we had to figure out was the number of teams, so the number of rows. So we went 1, 2, 3, 4. There's a total of 4 rows. Okay. So I just wanted to pay attention to how we could take that multiplication problem that we just solved using a picture and how we could turn that into an array. Okay, so let's check out this next problem. So for this one, I want us to relate division to an array model. So here's my 8 divided by 2 equals 4. So let's start with the total. So you know you have to have 8 of something, and then you have to split that into 2. Okay. So let's check out how I decided. Well, actually, why don't you guys take out your dry erase board and try and give that a try? It's okay. This is the first time I'm working on this, so if you're not sure, that's absolutely fine. Just go ahead and take out your dry erase board. Try and draw an array of what you think 8 divided by 2 looks like. Pause the video, draw. Once you're done, click play, and then I'll show you my array. All right, let me jump in and show you what I would draw. If you haven't finished, make sure you still have this paused so you don't see what I'm going to draw first. Okay, here we go. Ta-da! This is the array that I chose to draw for this. Now, here's what I want to tell you. So let's analyze this array, and then I'll tell you something different about this. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I have 8. There's my total right there. Okay. I divided it into 2, so I divided it into groups of 2. So 1 group of 2, 2 groups of 2, 3 groups of 2, and 4 groups of 2. So that's where I get my 2's. And then there are 1, 2, 3, 4 rows. Okay? What I want to do really quick, watch this. I'm going to make all this disappear. Oh no, my array went too. No! Hang on, friends. Okay, need all the rest of that stuff to go away. Okay, so let's check out this if I had my array. Now, some of you might be thinking, Mrs. Walker, my array doesn't look exactly like that. My array looks a little bit different. So check out how you also could have drawn this array. Whoop. You could have drawn your array sideways and said, I have 8, so here's still 8 in here. I split it into 2 groups, and there was 4 in each group. Now, because I did not tell you which number represented the number of groups and the number of rows, or I'm sorry, the number of rows or the number in each row. Oh, bless you. Excuse me, friends. So because I didn't tell you what each one of those, the 2 or the 4, what they represented, you could have drawn this array either way, okay? So either way is fine. This way or this way is absolutely fine for this problem, okay? When they don't specifically tell you how to break down your array, you can draw it however way you want when you're using division, okay? Let's take a look at another example. Okay, so we're going to continue to relate multiplication and division with this. We're going to draw an array that shows 15 divided by 3, okay? Now here's the tricky part, or here's the part not really tricky, but here's what you have to pay attention to. The last problem, I didn't tell you how to set up your array. This time I'm going to tell you the quotient, which remember that means the answer, so that's the 5 in your division problem, right here, okay? That needs to represent the size of the groups. So remember, your groups go side to side. Okay, how many groups you have? So 1 group, 2 groups, 3 groups. But how many dots or circles or triangles or squares or whatever you have in each row represents the size of your group. Okay, so go ahead and take a minute to try and draw this array that represents 15 divided by 3 equals 5, where 5, the quotient, is the size of the group. So pause the video, try and draw that array, and then we'll come back and try and check out and see if our arrays match each other. Okay, make sure that you're ready if you're going to keep watching. If you're not ready, make sure you click pause because I'm going to share my array with you now. Okay, ready? Ta-da! There's my array that I drew for this example. Now, let's analyze my array a little bit. So it's 15 total. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Whoops, there we go. So 15, there's the total. Still have it in there. Okay, we talked about where the quotient, which was 5 in our problem, had to represent the size of the groups. So let's make sure each group has 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I can tell because I lined them all up nice and neat that each one of my rows has 5. Okay, so let's look at a division and a multiplication equation for this array. I want you guys to stop and write down what, we know that here's our division, right? We already did the division sentence for it. Now I want you to come up with a multiplication array that matches that, okay? think back to when we talked about how you can do, it's the number of rows or groups times the number in each group to give you your multiplication equation. Okay, so go ahead and write that down on your dry erase board. Okay, if you're not ready, make sure you click pause because I'm going to share what I came up with. There we go. All right, so there's my division equation. Now I'm going to drag over my multiplication. Ready? Oh, there it is. Came in. Woohoo! Okay, so what I chose to write for this, we already talked about the 15 divided by 3 equals 5. Now we had to write the multiplication equation that matched this array. So remember, the first factor right here is the number of groups or number of rows. So 1, 2, 3. So that's where my 3 came from. Okay. Now the next number or factor in my multiplication problem is going to be the size of the groups. So remember we counted this last time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so check that out. Those two the division equation and the multiplication equation, they go along together. Remember we talked about how they're related. Okay, they're kind of like a fact family with multiplication and division. I know you guys remember fact families from addition and subtraction, but we have the same thing with multiplication and division. Okay, so where do you find the quotient in our multiplication equation? Ooh, the quotient. Remember, okay, so remember the quotient gives us the answer. So where is the quotient down in this multiplication sentence? So just in this one piece, where is this quotient that I had up here in this 5? Absolutely, it's right there. It's the second number. It's the size of the group. It's a factor, okay? So what I want you guys to do on your board is I want you to circle the size of the groups in both problems. So in your division problem, circle the size of the groups, which number represents that, and then in your multiplication equation, which number represents the size of the groups. If you circled the 5 in both problems, whoops, you got it, okay? The 5 in both problems represents the size of the group, okay? So look at how the factors in a multiplication problem can help you find the quotient in division. So think about that, friends. If you look at those, all those same 3 numbers are the exact same thing. They just change the order of them and change the operation. So make sure you think about that as a tool that might be able to help you in other problems. Okay, let's jump in and take a look at another problem. Okay, so for this same problem, or this problem, we're going to continue to relate multiplication and division and see how can one help us solve the other. That's really the key, is what strategies can we use to help us. So if I look at this problem, I have blank times 3 equals 24. Okay, so I know that one of my factors is 3, but I don't know this other factor. So what this tells me, it says, hey, use that factor and count by on that factor, or skip count by that factor until you get to the product. Okay, so let's check this out. So we're just going to skip count by 3s. That's all it is. Okay, so let me get my actual marker here. Okay, so every time I say a number, I'm going to write it. Okay, I'm also, we'll come back and skip count it again and analyze it a little bit more. So skip count by 3 is to 24. You guys ready? Here we go. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, and 24. Now I started at 3. Let's underline this. I started at 3 because look, that was one of my products. And then I ended at 24 because that was the, 3 was one of my factors, not one of my products. I apologize about that. So 3 was one of my factors, so I started skip counting by 3s. My product was 24, so that's the total, and that's where I would stop when I'm skip counting. So now what I want us to look at is how many times did I count by 3s? Okay, so let's do this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that means that my other factor in my problem is going to be 8 because I counted 3 8 times. So you can say, how many 3s make 24? You would say 8 3s make 24. Okay? So now let's go back and try and relate that to multiplication, or sorry, to division. So I want you to write a related division equation where the quotient, remember the quotient is the answer, or I'm sorry, yes, the quotient is the answer, represents the unknown factor. So this was our unknown factor in multiplication. So remember, when you start with division, you're going to start with the biggest number. So remember, friends, that these are the three factors, or the three numbers that I want to use in my division equation that you're going to write. Okay? So remember the quotient. It's going to be something. Oh, hang on. Let me get my pen. Something divided by something equals something. And you have to use these three numbers. Let me circle them again for us. These three numbers are going to be the ones that you are going to then take and put into your division equation. So go ahead and write that on your paper, on your dry erase board. Click play when you're ready to go over it together. Remember, the quotient, or the answer, remember in our division, that's what the answer is. It's called a quotient in division. Is going to represent the unknown factor. So what was the unknown factor when we had our multiplication sentence? Okay, so let's see what we come up with here. All right, so here's what I came up with for my division equation. 24, because you always start with the biggest number, divided by 3, because that was my other factor, equals the quotient of 8, because that was the missing factor. Okay? So think about the unknown factor. Let me get a different color here for us. The unknown factor in this problem was my quotient in this problem. Okay, so I can write in my 8. Okay. Now let's look at this. I'm going to clear off some of this stuff for us because I think we have a lot going on that might be a little bit tricky. Oh, hang on, friends. Sorry about that. Oh, hang on, friends. Here we go. My computer's being a little crazy today. Okay, so here are my problems. I'm going to come back in here, and I want to write back in that 8, so don't forget. Okay? So if we have 8 times 3 equals 24, and 24 divided by 3 equals blank, is it true or false, ready for this? Yeah, this little guy hiding down here, that both equations ask how many 3's are in 24? Got to think about that for a minute. So are both of these two equations at the top asking how many 3's are in 24? Tell your learning guide what you think about this one. Okay. After you've talked with them, click play, and I'll share with you what I think. Okay, let's share. Here we go. Okay, so they look different, but they actually mean the same thing. In both of those equations, we're talking about 8 groups of 3 and a total of 24. So it's true. The quotient in the division equation is like finding the unknown factor in the multiplication equation. Remember, we talked about that when we were kind of explaining it a little bit before. These are related to each other, okay? So even though they look different, they're really kind of asking the same thing. They're meaning the same thing, okay? So think about that today as you guys are working on your practice problems. Remember that as you are working, read the directions really carefully because you need to know what is it asking you to have each factor or quotient represent in the problem. Remember, factors are the two numbers in multiplication, and the quotient is the answer in a division problem. Okay? So again, good job today, friends. You guys did a really good job. I'm super, super proud of you. I know today might be have been a little bit tricky with some of the things. So take your time, head back over to the module to see what you need to do to work independently on today's lesson. If you guys have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. And I hope you guys all have an awesome day. See you soon, friends. Bye.